Well, and now we want to delve into the conversation of the day. On Monday, the National Treasury floated the third, or rather reopened, the Makeba infrastructural bond, and we just want to understand how that is changing the investment opportunities for Kenyans, as well as just how you can invest. On set with me is Maurice Oduor. He's an investments expert to just break down this Makeba infrastructure bond. Welcome on set, Maurice.
Thank you.
We can start there. What is Makeba?
Makeba is a mobile-based bond that the government came up with to enable retail investors also to have access to investment opportunity within the government bond environment. Right.
And before Makeba was introduced, just paint a picture of how the investment opportunities were.
Before Makeba, the retail investors were left only with the opportunity of participating in what we call collective investment schemes, basically money market funds, balance funds and equity fund, and also bank deposits, which as a result of before the removal of the floor in terms of bank deposit pricing, Kenya didn't have really attractive investment because you saw how the rate cap came and affected in terms of deposit pricing or loan pricing.
Right.
So Makeba came in as a now to complement most of the investment that the Kenyan had. So how Makeba works, minimum investment is 3,000 Kenya shillings, and because it's a mobile-based bond application platform, so now the maximum that you can bid per day is capped at 140, which is usually the M-Pesa or any other mobile money maximum transaction per day.
Yeah. And even before 3,000 shillings, the minimum for Makeba. Yes. The other options, what was the minimum?
The other options, if you look at money market fund, there are different options, but you can even invest as low as 500 shillings. And also the lock-in period is usually 40 days, so that to give the portfolio manager opportunity to be able to invest this fund and realize return. But the attractiveness of the Makeba bond that is tax exempt, in that whatever the return you are getting, is not the tax will not be levied on that. But when you move to this other segment, the unit trust, the withholding tax is 15%. So from taxation point of view, Makeba stands more attractive compared to other investment opportunities. But if you look at it in terms of accessibility, in terms of how much they need to invest, it means the 500 shillings, the 1,000 shillings that most unit trust fund managers providing in the market is more accessible still to Kenyans as compared to a Makeba bond. And also if you look at in terms of the knowledge and understanding, most Kenya relates so well with unit trust funds as opposed to a Makeba bond.
As opposed to a Makeba. Yeah. And what can the government do maybe to even increase the appetite for these, considering so far we have about 513,000 CDS accounts?
If you look at what education will come in very key, so that to make Kenyans understand what this bond is all about and why is even the government doing it, and also the attractiveness of the bond compared to the investment opportunities. But if you look at it in long term, government is supposed to provide an environment for private players to come and offer all these opportunities. That when government now, initially we used to have an environment where the bond auction market, treasury bill auction market, was mainly dominated by institutional investors, mainly banks and other non-banking institutions. Now government availed this to provide opportunity for retail investors, but look at in totality, government is supposed to provide the environment for this other player to provide all these investment opportunities to Kenyans. Yeah.
So are you saying that this is the wrong move they've taken?
It's a good move for now, but not in the long term, because you look at now in terms of all players compete for capital from the same pot. So it means now even government through this Makeba bond has also, of course, when you look at the bond market and treasury bill market, dominated by institutional players, pension funds, commercial bank and other non-banking institutions, and also fund managers. Now they even gone to taking retail, which now means government and other private sector competing for capital from the same pool, which now will result in what we call crowding out of the private sector, because I'm a private individual, I'm a private company offering unit trust. I don't have that tax advantage. I'm billed with tax 15%.
Right.
Government on the other side, tax exempt. Now we are competing for these 3,000, both government and other private players. Yeah.
Has the Makeba introduction given any competition to the T-bills, T-bonds?
I don't think so, because if you look at this Makeba and T-bills, T-bonds, they are targeting different segments of the market.
Right.
Makeba is more retail, but if you look at treasury bill market, treasury bond market is mainly dominated by institutional players. Yeah.
And the government is sourcing for funding, right? Through these the bond that they are offering.
Yeah.
What would you rather they do? Because the external borrowing is overweighing Kenyans already. What would you rather they do?
What government need to do in terms of come up with other funding avenues to be able to finance the day-to-day running of the government. Mostly will come in through public-private partnerships where they partner with other institutional investors and mainly pension fund money that are usually more long-term to fund other government projects as opposed to heavily relying on debt. So what we need in Kenya to do is to rework the entire funding structure so that we have funding that are more long-term and more sustainable as opposed to over-reliance on debt, which again, we're talking about external debt reaching an alarming level. Internally, when you overborrow again from the same market, you are crowding out private sector.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's talk about financial inclusion, because it's one of the main reasons why this particular bond was introduced in the first place. Where is Kenya on matters financial inclusion right now?
If you look at financial inclusion in East Africa, I think I would place Kenya #1, and mainly look at financial penetration, and it has been achieved mainly as a result of mobile application, mobile money. And if you look at that, even with the introduction of a Makeba bond, still, if you remove, let's say, M-Pesa from the picture, we are just going back to where we are. So financial inclusion does not necessarily mean that the government also has to participate in providing these investment avenues. The role of the government is provide an attractive environment, conducive environment, so these private players to come in, create jobs, and grow the economy.
For the people who want to invest in Makeba, would you advise them to do so, and what are the benefits they are getting from it?
The benefit they get from Makeba is from the tax point of view, because it's tax exempt. When they're showing you 10%, it means you'll get that 10%.
Right.
And if you look at this other side, it's taxable. Makeba, also they're telling you can access your money anytime, anytime, any day, even at night. You'll go through all those, the USSD code they have, then you'll be able to get your money. Look at this, the private players which now have restriction in terms of how fast they can pay you. They'll be telling you, you need to give us like 2-3 days for us to be able to pay you. So it depends upon an individual. On this other end, I'm getting a Makeba, tax exempt. I can get it anytime. Minimum is 3,000 Kenya shillings. On this other end, I'm getting a unit as investment, tax about 15%, and also I can get my money between 2 to 3 days. But in reality, if you look at this, especially people who are still not technology savvy, especially people in the rural areas who are not even maybe aware of even the existence of a Makeba, they will still prefer to invest in unit trust funds, and mainly even people who prefer doing the manual, the paperwork and everything, because the Makeba is purely based on mobile application. But if you look at now the treasury unit trust, you can still, other players come in with digital platform where you can do it, but you can still do the papers if you want. So in totality, we will need a Makeba, a good move, but not in the long run, because in the long run, government to ensure the private sectors are providing these opportunities. But look at this unit trust, also other things that need to be done even to enable unit trusts to compete on the same platform with the Makeba, tax exemption, tax, which now mean you're not competing on the same platform.
Right.
Yeah.
513,000 CDS accounts with 96% mobile money penetration in Kenya. There is quite a big market for this.
Yeah.
What do you think is lacking that it's not appealing to, assuming of the 96%, just half of them can afford to invest in that? What do you think is lacking?
I think what is lacking is a saving culture.
Right.
Not everything that is moving in these mobile platforms are meant for saving. Most of them are meant for transaction and transferring money from one person to the other. So what we need to work on in Kenya is the saving culture, so that even on the 96%, at least we need to move even to 48% now moving in terms of saving. Recently, we go so again, what is now the movement in terms of money is also in the mobile platform is also as a result. Most people move money even to do betting and those other things, which doesn't necessarily, you should have financial opportunity because everybody can transact from wherever they are, but not the bigger chunk of that money is meant for savings and investments.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of civic education to be
Civic
done.
education, that's why you will continue seeing disparity between financial inclusion and the number of CDS account, even the participation rate for the Makeba bond. Yeah.
How do you think the government is performing on that?
In terms of civic education,
Yes.
I think most of it is concentrated in urban centers, and we need to also to be able, if you look at financial inclusion, especially if you look at the role of M-Pesa in ensuring increasing financial inclusion, it goes even into the rural areas. But Makeba is mainly with us here. Makeba, even if you ask other people, they still don't even know what it is.
Right.
So we need to ensure that at least whenever we do, especially with the devolved system of government, it's easier to take this thing even to the rural areas. Yeah.
So involving the county government.
Involving the county government for them even to be able to understand and also be able to pass the information to other people.
But even as you said, the spending habits of Kenyans really, is there a way we can pull them out of the situation we're already in? And do we have that money that we can save?
What need to happen, a retirement benefits to have a plan to double total industry assets from 1.2 trillion to about 2.4 trillion in the next 5 years. And if you look at that, for that to be achieved, what need to happen, we need to come up with ways of bringing the informal sector to be able to save even for retirement. So once civic education will have to be done by different parastatals within the government, because RBA has a role, Capital Markets Authority has a role, the Nairobi Securities Exchange has a role, and all these institutions, all of them fall under the Treasury. So it's a role that now sits within the Treasury to ensure that all these things are achieved. And the most important thing, even to ensure that almost all Kenyans are saving for retirement, bringing informal sector into the pension platform that will now help inspiring the saving culture. And the most important thing, to be able to do this thing on a mobile platform, both on application based and also USSD, to serve other people that are not that technology savvy.
Right.
Yeah.
How secure is the information that is on this platform, Makeba?
If you look at even with the recent the GPDR law that was signed, I think the information is secure, and also given the platform and how it happens when the security measure in terms of the servers and everything, how they are done, I think there's no much threat in terms of the information. But what needs to happen is to ensure that at least we bring in people as many as possible for them to be able to understand, for them to, because why would I be comfortable with my money on M-Pesa? Then on the other side, now when I want to invest this money in a Makeba, I start questioning, will this bond be safe? So that's where now the education needs to come in. Yeah.
And the phase one, of course, the trial phase was oversubscribed.
Yeah.
The second phase, 75%, was it?
Yeah.
And now we've floated one for 500 million.
Yes.
Yeah, we are targeting 500 million.
Yes,
Do you think that these targets are achievable?
Kenyans are very funny people. If you look at how Kenyans usually react to new things, they like it, they do it, they test, they do it. And now with time, you see now the participation has started reducing. And also as participation has started reducing, you look at how Kenyans operate with their savings. Sometimes they even want to go and see where exactly is my money. For a Makeba bond, they have nowhere to go. They told money is at CBK, I gave my government. But if I invest in a unit trust, I can even walk to an office and be able to see who is even in charge of my fund. So that's the nature of Kenya. You look at how Kenyans used to operate with the IPOs, when it was starting. When Kenya started, everyone almost like participated. Safaricom came, almost everyone. Now with time, they even forgot the word IPO. So just the peculiar behavior of Kenyans in terms of how they react to new things. But with time now, they start realizing it's not even as good as I thought. Then the participation rate now reduces.
Now they want a new experience altogether.
Yeah.
Well, you've mentioned the trust levels of Kenyans, and there have been quite a number of reports of people being conned through their mobile money, either mobile banking or their mobile money platforms. Do you think the government is doing enough to protect our money online or on mobile?
I think if you look at where Kenyans come from, Kenyans come from an environment where the financial inclusion was the main thing, to be able that most number of people can access financial services. That one has already been done, and we've already achieved, we are talking about 80 to 90% financial penetration rate. So now the next phase, we need to ensure that at least these people that are in this segment, at least they are protected.
Right.
So we're in the phase where now we are supposed to ensure we already achieved the financial penetration rate. East Africa, we are at the top. Now we are to ensure that now the stability and the security now is guaranteed. which now I think is the the government needs to work. I think a lot is being done. If you look at even from what's happening in the banking sector, I think government is doing a lot in terms of ensuring that that happens. If you look at where we've moved, progressively how we are moving, I think with time we'll have stability and also security will also be ensured. Yeah.
How simple is this process for someone in, say, the rural areas?
That's where the challenge comes in, because if you look at even myself, when I'm doing that USSD for a Makeba bond, I get first along the way, then I just abandon the process. So you'd imagine if I can get first with the person and just leave it like that, how will my grandmother be able to do it? It will be difficult for them. So the process needs to be as simple as possible. Application is better. I just go and tap. But again, the question will come, how many people even have these smartphones in the village? There are very few. So now the people in the area are left now to the USSD. The USSD will give you a very lengthy process that cannot even, you'll even get tired halfway. So that's the challenge that will happen with the Makeba. That's why the participation rate, number of people who will be participating in this Makeba auction will be number will continue reducing, because very few people can be able to afford to go through that entire process.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're saying that it is only favoring those who, well, if you're even finding it difficult, the people who are supposed to be included, the financial inclusion, the targets are not being met?
Are not being met because if you look at, if it was an application, I have to tap, then at least most processes will be simplified. But now if you take Meet USSD, I do *8. Is this *89 to *8?
889.
889.
Yeah.
*889.
Right.
It will ask me so many questions. Then I now move to the next. I'm sure my grandmother will not be able to list. We don't have the patience to go through that entire process. So now it means this instrument is not for her. It comes to me. Now even me, I'm getting further along the way with all these so many steps. It now means the me that has the patience to go through steps is the only person that will participate in that bond. So as it's becoming more complex, the process is not simple. The number of people who can participate in it are reduced. You look at the ways how M-Pesa has done it. M-Pesa has even made it simple for even people who want to use M-Pesa to buy goods in a supermarket. Remember that M-Pesa tap thing that they introduced? Just to make it easy for you to transact. That's how Makeba needs to happen. To make it a one step or two step, and for you done the entire transaction. But if I'll go through about 6 steps in a USSD, I'll lose hope along the way and I just abandon the process. Let me take my money to a unit trust where I can even fill a form, I can even send instruction on email. Yeah.
Do you think a longer process, for that matter, equals a safer transaction?
It does, no. The process can be 2 steps and be safe. It can even be 10 steps, but it's still unsecure.
Right.
Yeah. So we just need to simplify ensure safety, but simplify the process.
All right.
Yeah.
So what is the way forward to ensure that these people who are still excluded, even if it's not really Makeba, what can the government do to ensure that they're included?
What government need to do is because remember I said Makeba is good to bring people to spur saving culture, but not in the long run. In the long run, this thing will have to be done by private sector.
Okay.
So government needs to ensure that there's a conducive environment for the private sector to do all these things. As opposed government now giving money, taking 3,000 shillings from Kenyans, leave those one to private, leave those one to unit trust investors to be able to do. Let government participate in taking money from pension funds, from banks, non-banking institutions, but leave 3,000 for private sector. So if government is taking 3,000, what will unit trust fund managers do, and what will happen to people who are employed by these companies? So it's a good step, but not for long run. In the long run, this thing will have to be done by private players. Give them the incentive, give them this tax advantage for them to be able to do this, to offer this to investors.
What is the way forward?
The way forward, government will have to move to a level where now they say, we've tried and we've achieved what the Makeba was supposed to do. Then at that point, need to hand it over to private sector. The thing remains when government, Betty, it's a pool of capital. Government is there. This pool of capital contains institution and retail. Government is there, competing for the same amount of money. Government wants that 3,000. Even me, I want it. Unit as fund manager, I want that 3,000. So it's not sustainable. You'll be crowding out all these other people. What government needs to do it, but don't do it to the eternity. Leave it along the way for private sector to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
The bond market in general, is it struggling? Because the CBK weekly bulletin for the week ending August 15th, they say that they saw a market decline by 37.1%. Is that just a normal dip, or is it struggling?
I think it's a liquidity has improved in the market, and I think if you look at what happened last week was the end of the what we usually call the cash reserve cycle. Cash reserve cycle, where it means now banks has to provide the liquidity that is required, the cash reserve that is required. So during when that cycle is coming to an end, so most banks, what they usually do, they ensure that they beef up their reserve to be able to meet the central bank requirement. That's what happened last week, because the end of the cycle last week. So the sort of like liquidity sort of disappeared a bit. We saw interbank increasing from 3 to 3.7%, but now if you look at what will happen again from this week, because now this is a new cycle, that one now will improve and market activities will sort of like come back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your closing remarks, Maurice?
My closing remarks is that for financial inclusion to be attained, and for Makeba also to be attained, education needs to be objective of Makeba to be achieved. Education needs to be done. The process needs to be simpler, and it needs to be simpler to understand that the person in the village can do it. And also to be done by the government, but not in the long run. In the long run, this thing will have to be done by private sectors. Government will provide conducive environment for these people, for this institution to operate, to provide these investment opportunities. And if the government is to do it, compete with private sector on the same platform. Give them tax breaks, the same way you've given yourself. For us now to compete on the same platform, you go for 3,000 tax exempt, I go for 3,000 tax exempt, so that we see who can offer the best return, then we proceed from there. But in totality, let government do it the way they have started, but not in the long run. In the long run, they leave it to private sector to be able to do those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Maurice Oduor.
Thank you.
For giving us those insights.
Thank you.
That was Maurice Oduor, an investments expert, just giving us insights on what he thinks about the Makeba bond. And remember, the government floated that particular bond early this week, the reopening of the third phase. It's targeting 500 million shillings, and you can invest by dialing *889#. Well, we now take a break. We will be back with more news. Stay with us.